Hi, my name is Courtney Nix. So me and my business partner, Chrissy Matthews, we started Guided Moves Realty. It is really important to us that we educate the community and help and just guide people with what they need in that moment. So we decided to do this tax assessment appeal because, as you know, we are seeing a whole bunch of assessments just being sky high. Beach Grove is the highest tax district in the county right now, so we just wanted to try to alleviate some of that. So the first thing to understand is the difference between assessed value and the property tax bill. The assessed value is the dollar value that the county assessor places on your property. It is their estimate of your home's market value as of January 1st. So some things that are calculated to come up with that price is recent home sales in your neighborhood, home appreciation trends in the area, square footage, lot size, how many bedrooms, bathrooms you have, any renovations that you have done or any renovations that you may need to do, age, condition, and then location, obviously. A home in Warren Township is not going to be assessed the same as a home in Carmel. Your property tax bill is the actual dollars that you owe to the government each year. It is calculated by multiplying your assessed value by the local rate, tax rate. So for if you're a primary homeowner and you live in the home, it's going to be capped at 1%. If you are a landlord renting out your home, you're going to be capped at 2%. If you are a commercial space, warehouse, things like that, those are capped at 3%. But obviously, a lot of times we're seeing that they're getting tax breaks, and us homeowners are having to pick that up. So it just comes down to the assessor controls the assessed value, but you can appeal it. The government controls the tax rate. That is not appealable, but that's where your voting comes in for referendums and things like that. The deadline is June 15th. That is a hard cutoff. They do not typically allow any exceptions or anything like that. You also just need to be aware that 3 things can happen. You can either get it overturned and your assessment goes down, or they can say no, your assessment stays the same, or they may unfortunately even find some mistakes that will hinder you and will make your assessment go up. So if you're right there on that cusp of you're not sure, numbers are really close, you may think about maybe skipping appeals this year and seeing what next year looks like, because it may come back higher. So before you file, you want to make sure that you have these documents. Your property record card, that's your public record. That's going to be where you want to go and make sure that you verify all of the information that they have is correct, because this is where the assessor finds their information at. The square footage, your lot size, how many bedrooms, bathrooms you have, if you have a basement, how much of it is finished, all of those kind of things. Your tax bill it's what they send you that shows what your tax assessment is and the breakdown of it and everything like that. Your parcel number is on your property record card. Make sure that you put your parcel number on the appeal form, not just your name and address, because that's how they run everything through their database. So they will kick it back and make you resend in one if you don't have your parcel number on there. If you have any comparable sales data from your neighborhood, from past sales, from your neighbors, things like that, that shows that your home is being assessed or valued way too high, make sure that you add that as well. And then any supporting documents. What assessors do, since they can't access the inside of your home, is they will make assumptions based on what your neighbors have done, based on what should have been done when it comes to like the year that your home was built and things like that. So if your home is 50 years old and several of your neighbors have upgraded their kitchen, they're going to assume that you probably did too, and they're going to assess it that way. So if you have pictures showing that you have not ever updated your home or kitchen or whatever, that can be used as evidence. Also, if you bought your home within the last 3 years, typically your home does not raise appreciation that quickly, so you can use that to show what you paid for it and why their assessment is just much higher. So section 1 is going to be where you talk about your property, the township, county, parcel number, all of that stuff. Make sure that all of that information is correct, and you write it correctly on there, write it readable. Section 2 is going to be the reason for appeal. So it's going to ask you what the current assessed value is, write what they have it assessed as. Where it says your proposed value, leave that blank. You do not want to give them a number because that number could actually still be way off from what they could essentially give you back. So just think of it as if you're going to a job interview and they ask you what your salary wants to be, you say negotiable. You don't say, I want $20 an hour, because they may have been giving you $25 an hour and you just left $5 on the table. So just think of it that way. Do not put assessment is too high. You need to give actual specifics. This is one of the reasons why they are sent back or they are denied immediately. People put assessment is just too high. They have to have specifics. So this is where you come with all of your evidence, comparable sales, appraisals, things like that. And then the signature is section 3. Sign it. If you have a POA or another representative or anything like that that you give permission to talk to the appeal people, make sure that you put their information on there as well. So these are all some exemptions that you may be eligible for. This is the first step to go to make sure that your tax assessments are as low as you can get them. So the homestead exemption, everybody who owns their home and lives in the home as a primary residence should get that homestead exemption. That's what brings you from 2% to 1% tax rate. So that's going to be your biggest one. Supplemental, it's essentially used to be the mortgage exemption, but they changed it to supplemental because they add a few additional small things in there that don't actually have a category. They just all go under supplemental. So you want to check and make sure that there's nothing on your home. If you're not getting a supplemental exemption, you want to make sure that they're not forgetting anything that could go under the supplemental. If you are over 65, there are several different exemptions that you could do based on specific criteria. So I would call the assessor's office, tell them how old you are, if you have any disabilities, you're a veteran or anything like that, and then they will tell you what you are eligible for. Same with disabled veteran, blind, or disabled person. If you have a spouse that's active duty military and they moved out of Indiana but you stayed here to take care of the home or things like that, you could also get a small additional exemption. So there's three different ways that you can appeal. You can do it online through their website. It is the easiest. It's a lot more difficult to attach like all of your evidence and things like that. So just keep that in mind. By mail, you can send everything in. I would just recommend that you add a self-addressed stamped envelope and ask them to send you a receipt to make sure that they actually got it. And in person, you can bring it all in person to the assessor's office on East Washington Street. You can just literally bring in all of your evidence as a full packet, ask for a receipt so that you can guarantee that you have the evidence showing that they received it. And then here is the assessor's office phone number, just so you don't have to go through the long phone tree that they make you go through. So the assessor's office is where you're going to go if you have any questions on this. So you're going to start with the informal conference. Once you send in your form with your evidence, they should call you. If they call you to set up an in-person meeting, that usually means that they have seen enough evidence to where you have a good standing probably to get it overturned. If they try to do everything on the phone call, essentially that's just basically weeding through the queue, trying to get rid of people. So make sure that if you didn't send in all of your evidence, you have additional evidence to back you up, showing that you deserve your assessment appealed. What generally happens as soon as you turn in your appeal, you're put to the beginning or to the end of the queue. The more that you call and bug them and make sure that your name is moving up, the better, because they have been known to just keep people sitting there for months and months and months and months, even over a year before they actually do something. So they're hoping that a lot of people will just give up and they don't have to worry about them. So the informal conference, if it comes, you guys come to an agreement and they say, yes, this is what we're going to drop the assessment to, we'll give you a check back of the difference. If you're okay with that, that's where the appeal stops. If they say no and you want to push further, or if they say it's assessed at this, but you still think it needs to be lower, you will go to the next step, which is the Property Tax Assessment Board of Appeals. So this is where you're going to stand in front of a board, you're going to give them your evidence and your speech on why you think your taxes were assessed your home was assessed way too high, and then they will make a decision, yes or no. If, again, you still don't agree with their decision, you can come down, you can get moved down to the Indiana Board of Tax Review. That's where they will take a deep dive. They're going to look at neighbors to see if anybody else has appealed in your area. They're going to try to figure out what is going on. If still an agreement does not come between you guys, there's a small chance it could be moved over to the Indiana Supreme Court. They typically only take about 100 cases a year, and they're usually the big money cases, your commercial warehouses, your big businesses that are bringing in a lot of revenue, things like that. Typically, it's not going to be primary homes, so just keep that in your head when you're moving through all of these. You can appeal every single year, so if you don't find that you guys came to a meeting of the minds and you're not happy, but you can't go any further, you can definitely try again next year. So this rule ends May 12th. Essentially, if you are someone who pays in May and in November because you have paid off your mortgage and it's not in escrow, there is this rule that can save you money where you can send in your payment based on the prior year's assessed value, not the assessed value that they just sent you. So essentially, let's just take this example, 2024, they assessed your value, your taxes are going to be $5,000 a year. But the ones that just came in that you're disputing for 2025, it was $8,000. You can pay your taxes on that $5,000 assessed value while you're going through the appeal portion to get those appealed. What will happen is if you lose, you'll just have to pay that difference. If you win, then you won't have to be out that extra money. But that ends on May 12th of every year, usually about a month before the deadline. So just keep that in mind. So insurance, I won't go too big in this because my insurance woman wasn't able to be here tonight. She was here for the other one that I did a couple of weeks ago, but I just wanted to touch base on it really quick because insurance and taxes go hand in hand, especially if you're still paying a mortgage and these are getting put in your escrow account. You want to make sure that you're getting a new quote and checking on numbers and things every single year to make sure that you're not underpaying for what your home is valued at or even overpaying what your home is valued at. You want to make sure that your coverage is for the replacement cost, not what your home is valuing at, because your home could value at $500,000 if you were to sell it tomorrow, but if you had a full loss in a fire or something like that, it may actually cost $650,000 to build that same house with today's inflex on how much materials are and labor and all of that stuff. So just make sure that you know the difference on that. Also, there have been some changes with roofs, how they calculate the cost of roof replacement and such, and deductions. They're now kind of turning more towards a percentage of deduction on your home's value versus just a straight cash deduction. So it may say $1,000 or 1%. If 1% of your $400,000 house, that would be $4,000. So those are just little things that you have to check on to make sure that that you're understanding what it is. So if you have any specific questions, you can actually go do the barcode and fill out her form. She'll be able to run a no obligation free quote for you, and she'll be able to answer the specific questions that you have for insurance, because I personally do this every year, and I personally have saved hundreds of dollars year over year, because certain things change or whatever. I've seen it to where an outbuilding got torn down and people were still paying the coverage on outbuildings, and a whole bunch of stuff could happen with insurance. So this is just a quick reference rundown on what we just talked about. Review your property cards to make sure there are no errors. If there are errors, that is evidence that you can use. You're going to complete the Form 130. That's going to start the appeal. That's the initial form that's needed. You're going to submit it to your Marion County assessor. If you do not live in Marion County, you're just going to submit it to your county assessor in your county. Indiana as a whole, they do things very, very similar across the board with all counties. There just may be a couple of things like the form may look different or something like that. So then from there, you're going to have the informal conference in person or over the phone. You want to try to have it in person because that's where you're going to have the biggest benefit. And if you don't come to an agreement there, you're going to get put in front of the PTA BOA. That's where they're going to have the board in front of you, and they're going to collectively come to a decision. If you still don't have an agreement with them, you will get pushed down to the Indiana Board of Tax Review. That's where they're going to do the much deeper dive to make sure that there's not anything that they're missing, to see if, like I said, your neighbors and other people in the community are appealing, and then they got to figure out what's going on. If still nothing is agreed to upon, there's a very, very, very small chance that the Indiana Tax Court would pick it up. Again, a very small chance. So these are your resources. This is where you go to get the appeal form, the initial form that's needed. If you need your property card that shows all of your public records and everything like that, along with like the square footage of your home and all of that, that's where you're going to go to find that. This is, again, the Marion County Assessor's phone number. That's the address, downtown East Washington Street. If you want to go through to try to figure out exactly what the Indiana Board of Tax Review is looking for, you can go there and go through their list. And then this just talks about how to appeal, again, if you need even more specific directions and all that they want to look for when you're appealing and things like that. So, again, my name is Courtney Nix. Guided News Realty, we really try hard to help out our community. So if you feel like we've given you the value today and you're ever in need of a real estate agent, we hope that you would at least give us a chance to interview for the job to help you out. Right there, the barcode is to our Facebook page. We drop a lot of knowledge, a lot of community events, educational and fun. There's usually a lot of information that a lot of people find is helpful and necessary. So feel free to scan that and follow us. And that is the presentation. So does anyone have any questions at all?